Alright, unfortunately the last video I made didn't end up recording because I closed my computer before I hit the stop record button. Anyways, so for this video I want to talk about some of the problems with atheism, and sorry, excuse me. So, I honestly don't believe whatsoever that atheists have really thought through the philosophical and ethical implications of the absurdities, scientific possibilities, and logical fallacies of their own philosophical worldview. And I was just asked by Jeffrey Lauder yesterday to give logical defense and response as to why I think atheism is philosophically inept. And I just told him, yeah, sure, no problem. I said, you can't know it for certain, you can't verify it, and you can't prove it. Therefore, you can't trust it for a source of knowledge or epistemology. And it's also anti-science because you can't get everything from nothing and life from non-life. So that's how I answered Jeff. And like in a nutshell, that's that's what it is, right? So, and I've talked at length here and there about the problems of the epistemology of atheism. Again, you can't prove it, so you can't trust it as a source of knowledge or epistemology. The moral problem, of course, it's a subjective worldview, so you can't say anything is moral or immoral. Everything is just a matter of your preference. Now, of course, practically it's impossible to live out because you can't live like morality isn't true or objective in any meaningful way without losing your mind. And you can know that for sure because Friedrich Nietzsche, the late famous atheist philosopher, tried to live out the moral implications of a subjective worldview. But here's the thing. If you are going to try to live out a subjective worldview, you're trying to approach that objectively, which of course is a self-defeating proposition altogether. So you're either going to have to say that you're going to have to try to import that it's objectively subjective, which again is a self-defeating circular argument, or you're going to have to say that it is objective. And by what standard? Because your own philosophical position is subjective. Either way, it's self-defeating circular reasoning. So, and that's what atheism is. It's just a circular argument from top to bottom, and it just doesn't work. So, and circular reasoning doesn't necessarily mean it's fallacious, but in atheism, of course, it's absolutely fallacious. Now, of course, atheists could try to play bait and switch and say, well, Rob, you can't know that God exists. Well, actually, yeah, I can. Because it's logical, first of all, because there's too much order and design in the world to not think that God exists. And secondly, I can know God exists on a personal level. So I don't just know that God exists as a fact of life, but I know that God exists as on a personal experience level. So, and God can be known. Now you might think, well, how can an immaterial being be known? But he is. He's knowable. I can't see him. I can't touch him like I'm touching my face now. But I still experience him in the way I experience life. And, yeah, I mean, now you might say, well, you're just making that up, and that's a subjective claim, and, well, it is subjective, but I'm not making it up. And the thing is, everybody knows God exists. Remember, the Bible talks about this, too, and that people who deny the existence of God are simply lying to themselves. And Gary and I on Fort Worth Crosstalk kind of talk about this, too, is that atheism is basically setting you up for saying things you know aren't true. You know God exists. Everybody knows God exists. The problem isn't here. The problem is here. Your denial of God doesn't have to do with an intellectual pursuit, but a moral dilemma. It's not, again, I'll say it again. Atheism is not an intellectual pursuit. It's a moral dilemma. You don't want to bow to God's standard for human sexuality. I mean, that's always what atheism has always really been about. It's just you don't want a standard other than your own. And that's okay. I mean, you're free to do that, but at least let's start being honest about it, right? That atheism has more to do with your sexual preferences than it does with your intellectual pursuit of knowledge. I'm not saying all atheists, but I'm saying a lot, if not the overwhelming majority of atheists, reject God for moral reasons, not intellectual ones, or personal reasons, or both. So I think most people reject God for personal reasons, or moral reasons, or both. But no one rejects God truly because of intellectual issues. All right, that's it for now. Peace out, Brother Rob.